being humble and listening to the workforce, listening to your coworkers, listening to the workforce. One of the principles is leadership response matters, and it matters a lot. And what I mean by that is when you respond, you listen, you're humble, you're curious, you don't react, you don't jump to conclusions, you don't come in with biases. You try to go in with an open mind and listen to the team to get information, to get details, to get context of the situation.
This is Facility Rockstars, the podcast that celebrates the unsung heroes of our daily lives, facility professionals. I'm your host, Jay Culbert. Join me as we honor these great leaders, sharing stories, insights, and expertise that empower us all to learn and grow together. Facility Rockstars is sponsored by Colludus, operating the way you operate in order to make your life easier.
Welcome back to Facility Rockstars. I'm your host, Jay Culbert. I'm thrilled to talk with today's guest. He's a true trailblazer in the EH&S and facilities management industries. He possesses extensive knowledge and experience in EH&S and facilities management, having worked in both fields for over 25 years now. He has dedicated his career to advancing safety standards and environmental stewardship. His passion for this field is shown through his interactions with his team, as well as his postings on LinkedIn. He is Director of Environment, Health, and Safety at Collins Aerospace. Matt Twerdy, welcome to the show.
I'm so glad to be on the show, Jay. I really appreciate the team reaching out to me to have me on the show, and I'm looking forward to a great discussion today.
Well, definitely appreciate you investing the time with us, Matt. We're really happy you're here.
Awesome.
So you've seen or heard a couple things on the show, and I'll always start with the first question, and that is this, especially with your extensive experience and knowledge, what's been your biggest lesson learned over the years?
I'd say being humble and listening to the workforce, listening to your coworkers, listening to the workforce, which leads me into where that leads me to is collaboration. Just working together. And where I work in Windsor Locks for Collins Aerospace, I head up EHS at the Windsor Locks facility. And one of our logo for our safety culture program in Windsor Locks is working together. So many years ago, I learned when I came to the site about the safety culture program in Windsor Locks and found out about the logo. And that's really what it represents, working together. And I've worked that way in my career, but it just really enhanced the way I look at things, learning from the team in Windsor Locks.
When you say listen and be humble, like how would you land that for people who may not be as familiar with that concept or how to exercise it day to day? Like what's the best practice, or how did you learn it, and how would you teach it or lead it?
Yes, I'm going to talk in a few minutes about human and organizational performance, otherwise known as HOP or HOP. And there's 5 principles to it. And one of the principles is leadership response matters, and it matters a lot. And what I mean by that is leadership response, when you respond, you listen, you're humble, you're curious, you don't react, you don't jump to conclusions, you don't come in with biases. You try to go in with an open mind and listen to the team to get information, to get details, to get context of the situation. Could be good or bad.
I love the don't react and listen. Before we do get into HOP, specifically in the 5 principles, are there any other particular practices, maybe outside of that you found to be very helpful with this in your team and really leading by this example?
Yeah, and I think going back to the collaboration, I think one thing you and I wanted to talk about today too was because this is a Facility Rockstars podcast. I sit with our facilities organization. So I sit with my facilities counterparts. We have a facilities team there, maintenance, project managers, engineering, CAD group, and my EHS professionals and myself. We all sit together. And that drives collaboration within those organizations. And I often hear when I go to other sites or other companies about the push and the pull between facilities and EHS. We don't run that way in Windsor Locks. It's really, and I think a big part of it is because we sit together and we're that close together, and we build relationships, and we have dialogue, and we're actually operating humbly with each other.
Hmm. It is unique as you, well, you didn't say it was unique, but I'll tell you it's unique because as you do go to other companies, and not that they're doing it wrong, they're just doing it different. So the
Yeah.
fact that you're sitting together and you're kind of one team, many others are, but it's fairly unique. So how did you start this when you got to Collins? Was it like this?
Yeah, some of my coworkers, co-leaders that I knew had come from a previous aerospace company to Collins, and we all kind of came from the same aerospace company, was Command Aerospace, and that's how we operated the command. We had facilities in EHS together, and when they came to the Windsor Locks campus, it was not, and this is before I came there, and they brought it together. They
Mm,
decided when they came there, they said, why is EHS sitting across the campus from us? We need to be talking to each other all the time about
mm,
compliance, about safety standards, about doing risk assessments together, about doing pre-works with our contractors. So they decided to bring them all together, and that's what they did. So that was done shortly before I came. And so it was in place when I came, so it was great. And then we could just enhance on that, and we did. And that was, boy, I'm dating myself, but that was 12 years ago, say 12 years ago when I came to the campus, and they had brought it together, and it just continued to grow from there. And
and the,
it really, and there's so much that goes on with those two organizations sitting together because you can hear each other having these conversations. You can reach out to each other directly, quickly, to
mhm.
talk about a compliance issue, or a contractor walks in and they're getting ready to do a job and they're talking to our project managers, and then our project managers can go right over to my EHS team that oversees our contractor program.
Mhm. Let's play that out if we could, because I think the audience would definitely. I know I'll benefit from it as well as our listeners. So when you said pre-work with contractors, I do want to jump into that, but I like kind of preface it by saying it sounds like you've bridged the, facilities being tasked to get something done quickly, and on time, and EH&S saying, "Whoa, let's slow down a bit here. Let's figure this out. How do we do it safely and be in compliance?" So when you do a contractor pre-work, I think you called it, right?
Yep.
So how does that work, and is that where that starts?
Yeah, and Windsor Locks, I'm gonna bounce around a little bit here. In
Please.
Windsor Locks, I mentioned our safety culture program and culture and organizational culture. And part of that, before I jump into the pre-work, we have another tool that we use in Windsor Locks for employee empowerment called the RIDI program,
Okay.
which is called Report It, Don't Ignore It. And I tell many folks all the time that the RIDI program is one of our biggest culture drivers in Windsor Locks because it's employee empowerment. They can raise their hand, report, and it's basically a hazard and near miss reporting system.
Hmm.
Say something, you see something, say something. In our union, we had some grassroots safety teams came up with that term back in 2003 called "Report It, Don't Ignore It." So
Hmm.
that drives our safety program, a big part of it. But then the pre-work with contractors kind of is the same symbol. It's another one that everybody always talks about in our contractor program. Do you have your pre-work? Did you have dialogue around the pre-work? Did you do
Hmm.
job planning? So the pre-work is really our risk assessment tool. We also sometimes we'll use the term called JHA on the fly, job hazard assessment on the fly, because you're on the fly planning a job. It, but it's the
Hmm.
pre-work drives the contractor program and drives dialogue between EHS, operations, project managers, and the contractors and facilities.
Who organizes all of that?
Yeah, it really starts with our project managers.
Okay.
We'll have them in place with our maintenance team too, but there's not as many pre-works there. But on the contractor program side, it really starts with the project managers working with a contractor that's supporting a job. They know that they got to put the pre-work in place. And that also drives some other permits that we have in place for, say, overhead work permit or confined space permits. It
Hmm.
all starts there with the pre-work. So the project managers with the contractor will start that and then bring in my EHS team as needed to have those discussions and work through that. Really driven by facilities and the project management team.
Excellent process. Excellent process put in place.
Yeah. it drives that culture for that contractor program. I can't say it enough how our RIDI program drives the employee culture. That's the tool that drives the pre-work's the tool that drives the culture in the contractor program on
Hmm.
focus on safety. And
Hmm.
there's another term that I've started using in Windsor Locks, a philosophy that we're trying to push too is mission first, safety always. And I picked this up from some military folks. We always say safety first, but that's not really what happens when the folks get out in the field.
Hmm.
They're dealing with multiple aspects of things going on, multiple tasks, multiple priorities. Safety starts off being number one priority, but then as you get in the field, you uncover all kinds of complexity going on in the workplace or the field work or wherever you are.
Mm-hmm.
So what we started saying is it doesn't really do us justice in the EHS field saying safety first. It doesn't really have a great, I know we've always said that and it drives that culture. But what I'm trying to say is really we're after the mission. Get the
To
job done.
understand the details first.
Correct. Get the
Yeah.
mission, focus on the mission, the details of the mission, but also be safe always.
Mm-hmm.
So,
And
yes.
this is new, fairly new, or you're just rolling
Fair,
this out now?
fairly new within the last couple of years. I picked it up from some military folks in the hop arena.
Hmm.
Yep. Yeah.
Outstanding.
Yes.
It's one. I'll tell you this funny thing. One of my military friends said that intelligence would always blame operations, and operations would always blame intelligence. Didn't have the proper, and so mission first, figure it all out, go execute it.
Yeah, and then you have your safety culture, safety always.
Mm-hmm.
Because the military guys said, "Hey, these were fighter pilots that I was talking to. I was getting trained in culture and from them, and they said, "Hey, Matt, our leaders didn't tell us don't hit that mountain over there. We were
Hmm.
focused. We knew not to hit the mountain, or we knew we had practiced all the safety protocols. All those things were in place, so we could go focus on the mission because we had to go save lives.
Mm-hmm.
And you
All right.
can take it, and you can apply it to anything. And
It's excellent. I really appreciate you sharing this. This. I can't wait to hear more about how you roll this out and how it actually plays out with the organization and your team and the projects and everybody and the culture.
yeah,
I'm excited to jump into the next topic that we've kind of dabbed on a couple of times here in our conversation because it's come up in the past, but no one's ever really spoken in depth about, human and organizational performance and the principles of it. And, you're a master at this, Matt. You walk it, you talk it, you breathe it. So I'd love to hear every perspective you'd like to share on this and the importance of it.
yeah. At first, I wouldn't say I'm a master. I'm still learning. I've done a lot of research on it. I've been studying HOP. Oh, probably for coming up on 10 years now, and I really started implementing it when I came back to Windsor Locks to lead EHS in 2018 and started finding some like-minded people and sharing them with them the philosophy. So let me back up a little bit and tell you what the philosophy is.
Please.
Yes, really, it comes out of the nuclear industry, and it used to be called human performance. And then many years back, some other folks in the hop arena got a hold of it and said, "Hey, you know something? We're missing the organizational aspect of this." So they renamed it human and organizational performance. And I'll continue to call it hop moving forward, so we don't have to keep saying that.
Sure. Sure.
But it's a philosophy. It's not a program. I'm not selling you a program. It's a way of thinking. Hop is really essentially about understanding the context and conditions of work, the complexities that we work in every day. And like I said, it's an operating philosophy to give us a framework for building more resilient organizations. So by using these 5 principles, that's part of the philosophy, which I'm going to run through quickly here. So in Windsor Locks, we already had a strong cult. Like I said, I've mentioned safety culture many times here in the conversation already. We had a strong culture program, but it started to plateau. And then so when I came back, I brought in this hop philosophy and it really kind of rejuvenated us. And one of the programs that it made a huge difference in it is the contractor program.
Okay.
And some of the first people to get involved with me were folks in the contractor program and in our facilities department that really latched onto it.
And why
And
did they latch on? What was the draw?
I think the draw was that they're the ones that dealt with the most issues every day. because of dealing with infrastructure problems, equipment problems, I'll say organizational problems too.
Mhm.
And they're the ones supporting all those things across our campus. And I should back up and tell you the Windsor Locks campus is like a small city. It's about 2 million square feet. Any one day before COVID, we had 4,000 employees. Any one day, right now, you could probably have 3,000 employees on site. So, a couple hundred acres, 2 million square feet, a lot of things to cover, a lot of
Mhm.
complexity.
Mhm.
So they started hearing me talk about some of the leaders in the facilities department started hearing me talk about HOP and the philosophy. And there's some tools that I was talking to them about that would help them go learn context when they had a situation. And before I jump there, I want to make sure I just talk about the 5 principles, and then we'll jump to some tools that I help the facilities department with.
Certainly, please.
There's 5 principles. First one is you need to understand that people make mistakes.
Mhm.
Humans are fallible. We all make mistakes every day. And often when something happens and somebody makes a mistake, we jump to conclusions, we stop there, and that's it. We don't go any further to uncover any more information. So first we got to understand that people make mistakes, and that's the start of the conversation. And that the next one is once you accept that people make mistakes, is that then you need to understand that blame fixes nothing.
You say blame fixes nothing?
Blame fixes nothing.
Mhm. Mhm.
Blame is emotionally satisfying, just not operationally satisfying. When I blame you with something, and I got that from some other leaders, I'm standing on the shoulders of many other leaders in the HOP realm, and I'm repeating some things they've taught me.
Mhm.
But when you point the finger at somebody, you're basically emotionally satisfying yourself, moving that emotion from you to them and walking
Mm.
away. But you didn't solve anything. And the next person can come along and make the same mistake again in that system because you just blame somebody, you didn't fix the system.
Mm.
Kind of
Big,
more
big
like,
distinction right there.
yeah,
That's
and
I
this is
love that.
kind of, yeah, and a little bit of this is like an old view of leadership versus newer view of leadership being more collaborative, really empowerment
Mhm.
versus top down leadership.
Mhm.
And then, so number three, the third principle is context drives behavior.
Okay.
So, context in our system drives people's decisions every day. Our culture, the tools we've provided them, the equipment. So, when I say context, I'm talking about information about our system.
When you say your system, you mean the 2 million square foot, couple hundred acre physical structure? You mean the way it operates, all
The
inclusive?
Not necessarily. So
Okay.
it could be that, hey, I'm going to go into we're a multi-tenant site, multi-businesses on site. So I can go into one of our businesses and the culture in that business, the pressure they're putting on their employees, the lack of tooling they've given them, or the lack of maintenance on their equipment that they haven't done is driving some of those employees to make the decisions to work in that environment every day.
Understood.
And a lot of times uncovering that context uncovers a term we call local rationality. The local rationality theory, the things that people are dealing with every day in that work environment between culture, equipment, people.
Is there any more to say on that? Because that really lands. Like local rationality. I'm not sure I've heard those words together before.
Yeah. So basically, yes, I want to repeat something to you. I'm trying to look it up real quick while we're talking, which I don't have it handy. Basically, what it talks about is people do what they do at the time based on the information, the tools, and the equipment we've provided them.
Mm-hmm.
Again, making decisions within our work environment. And that's what I mean by we're within a system.
Sure. Understood.
Yeah, so
Understood. Thanks for
it could be in
clarifying.
an overall system, like my big site, could be within a cell.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Okay.
That
Understood.
help?
Yes. Yes. Thank you for expanding. Definitely.
Okay.
Didn't want to
And
break
then
your stride there, Matt. We're on principle number 3. I don't want to slow you down.
no, it's good. We got to elaborate a little bit on each one of these. And then
Please. Yeah.
and then principle number 4 is once I have context, now I can go learn and improve. So principle number 4 is learning and improving is vital. And that's what the world is on facilities is all about, continuous improvement. And in operations, in our lean programs and all those things, learning and improving is vital. So once I've uncovered that context by not blaming, and I started this conversation off today about being open-minded and being
Hmm.
humble,
And listening.
all
Hmm.
those things help me go uncover context in everyday work.
Hmm.
You can use these principles in everything you do every day.
I would agree. I would absolutely agree. Yes.
So
Okay.
once you have context, now you can go learn and improve. And then the last principle, which is one of the most important ones to me and has really impacted me in my life and how I operate as a leader every day, is leadership response matters. And it matters a lot.
And you mentioned that earlier on when we were talking about, yes, being humble. Okay. Can you say more on that?
Yeah, I have a little story. We got some time here.
Hmm.
Because I've taken these to heart and I try to, these principles are running through my mind every day. I had a new team that ended up working underneath me, another EHS team at another facility in Rockford, Illinois, within the last year. And and they called me up one day and they said, it was a Friday afternoon. They say, "Hey Matt, we just had this injury." I don't remember the details. It's been a while, but they said, "Hey Matt, we just had this injury." And what I did is I responded. I didn't react like we talked about earlier. I
Hmm.
responded and I said, "Is the employee okay?"
Hmm.
And they gave me some information. Then I said, do we need to do anything with the equipment? Is the facility okay? Do we need any short-term corrective actions? And then I have them give me a little bit more details so I can do the proper communications to leadership. And then I let them go learn, not investigate, go learn. I've been
Hmm.
trying to change that term from investigate to learn,
Now, I love it. Why? Why is it just that? Yes, please explain.
just because the connotation around it.
Hmm.
When I tell you I'm here to investigate you, how do you feel? How do you feel, Jay? You
Like
start
a
to close
criminal.
up.
I
Yes,
feel
you
like
feel
a
like
criminal.
yes, you feel like you did something wrong.
Yes.
And then what happens is you close up.
Hmm.
That's our then we're protective of the information we're sharing because you're here to investigate me. I better be protective about what I say. So then I don't get context.
Hmm.
And then I'm not building trust. I'm not getting context. And if I don't have context in the information, I can't fix anything.
Hmm.
I can't have my facilities department help me fix anything if I don't have details. So
All tied together. Hmm.
yeah, so that team in Rockford, after I was done with that conversation, they said at the end of it, they were like I said, a newer team to me. There was a couple of folks on the phone that day, and they said, "Matt, we really like the way you handled that conversation." And I just repeated this story to one of the guys that was on that call that day in a class I was leading in Rockford a couple weeks ago. And he said, "Yep, that's how it occurred, Matt. Exactly like that." And it meant a lot to us.
And they're better off for it, is what I'm hearing too, right? It,
Yes,
yeah.
because then they feel more, then those EHS professionals feel more comfortable within the organization and working for me. Then what's going to happen is that's going to trickle down through the organization. Leaders' response matters a lot.
Sure. Yeah. It rings true like psychological safety is what I'm thinking of, right?
Yes.
So,
Yeah.
mhm.
That's another one that we talk about a lot, that the HOP principles, the HOP philosophy drives psychological safety.
Hmm.
You feel comfortable reporting things. You're not afraid of retribution.
So how long have you been, and you may have mentioned this, I might have glazed over it. If I did, I apologize. How long have you been utilizing the hop system, right? When did you launch it?
Yeah, I started researching it and finding out about it when I worked in our corporate EHS office for a while and some of my stints within RTX and Collins.
Mhm.
And I came back to the Windsor site in 2018 and I had been researching HOP, and I was able to start sharing that with some like-minded people. And like I said, I talked about facilities, I talked about the contractor program, folks that worked on my team, started getting them into some webinars about it, started teaching that to them, and they just grabbed onto it. It snowballs. Once you have the right people that are really supporting it, like any initiative, they jumped on it. And like I said, we really started using the tool the philosophy, I should say. I don't want to say tool. The philosophy with our facilities organization first, and there's a tool that we use in the Hop Arena called learning teams.
Okay.
I know many folks on your call and yourself are probably familiar with Kaizen events and things like
Mhm.
that. It's similar to a Kaizen event without as much structure around it. It and the learning team is some of the main points to a learning team is you gotta go meet for a short duration of time to go uncover context with those closest to the work. A lot of times, sometimes I've been in Kaizen events where you're in there with some engineering teams and some other leaders, and there's no workers in there.
Mm.
Learning team is bring those closest to the work into the discussion with you to help you uncover context.
What have you seen as a result of doing that, Matt? What is the difference that's made in the progress?
So the workforce, the workers that are in there with us, are all of a sudden are like, "Oh wow, they're listening to me. They're taking my feedback. I'm part of putting solutions in place. I'm part of the decision making." And then again, there we are. We're building culture, we're building psychological safety, and we're building relationships. And again, those workers are going to be um, more apt to bring things to you once they learn about the learning team model and the hop philosophy, because we share the hop philosophy with them right off the bat, just like I did with you guys today. I'll do a little
Mhm.
intro
Sure.
and say it's a safe space. Tell me what's going on. And often we get the feedback we need and we work together as a team to put actions in place. We meet for 90 minutes one day
Mhm.
to uncover context of a situation. It could be a good thing, could be a bad thing we want to find out about. And often the facilities leaders that I worked with said, "Hey, Matt, we just had a problem on our plant shutdown, and one of our generators kicked out to a data center that was pretty important to the organization. And that generator should not have turned off during the plant shutdown. So we got to go learn. Can you help us with a learning team?" And then we go have a discussion.
You
90
just,
minutes.
you just said something that really, really hit me. It could be a good thing. It could be a bad thing, right? Because many times we'll of course respond, not react to something bad or something that happened outside protocol. But how often do we actually focus on good things? And maybe we do, but I like that you're making that distinction.
Yeah, you want to find out about both.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And often you can use these tools to go find out about normal everyday work, where you might go have a conversation with a worker out in the field or in your manufacturing site. Just by just a simple discussion, walk up to them and say, "Hey, how's it going today? Is there anything that's bothering you about your job? Is there anything difficult about it? Is there anything dangerous about it? Could you tell me about that? Is there anything? Are there any obstacles I can help you with?" And they
Mm-hmm.
might tell you some bad things, or they might tell you some good things that they've uncovered some best practices that they're doing that you want to share with the rest of your organization. When I say uncovering context, could be good context, and it could be some issues where you might be drifting towards a problem.
Certainly. I think it would be really great if you could share a little bit of how a company, an individual, an organization could start this. What is a resource, Matt? Where would people look or go?
I often tell people to reach out to me, and I could give information. I could get them to the right spots. There's many tools out there today. There's books in the hop arena. That's what I started doing. Started reading books. I started going to some conferences. There's a site called the Hop Hub. If you Google Hop Hub, it'll bring you into a site that's supported by leaders in the hop arena that I've learned many things from that I'm repeating today.
Mm-hmm.
And that's basically it. Just many books. There's a couple leaders out there that I would recommend to folks. There's one gentleman named Todd Conklin. He's got a weekly podcast called the Pre-Accident Investigation Podcast.
What's the spelling of his last name so everyone can hear?
Yep, Conklin. Conklin. He's got a weekly podcast, and it's all about the hop arena and looking at things differently. He's a really very thought provoking. He's got a short one he does on Wednesdays for 3 minutes. And then he's got a longer one he does on Saturday mornings for about 20, 30 minutes.
Okay.
Very good
Outstanding.
material. There's one other leader I want to tell the team about here that in the field that I've researched. His name is Sidney Decker.
Sydney
DE
Decker.
Yes, Sidney Decker. He's out of Australia. He's another one that's been doing this a very long time, works closely with Todd Conklin. and another great resource. And he's got several books out there, and one of them is it's titled The Field Guide. I don't have the full title in front of me, but I know that it's The Field Guide by Sidney Decker.
Okay.
Another great one to read, and they're both not really textbook. His book, some of Sidney Decker's books are. He's a professor, so it could be a little tough read. He's got some other ones that are easier to read, and Todd Conklin's books are very easy to read.
This is fantastic. Thank you for sharing all that.
You're welcome.
That's excellent. I do have another question before we talk a bit more about you, Matt. But is there anything else on hop that should be called out here or explained or illustrated before we do move to anything else?
And the one thing I didn't delve into, circle back to, is the contractor program in Windsor Locks and how it's really changed the dynamics of our contractor program.
Sure.
For many years, we've had a contractor review board in Windsor Locks, and you can just feel the stress with that name of the board, contractor review board. Oh boy, I don't want to go in front of the contractor review board. So for many years, we would have contractors come in when there was an incident or an injury or something went wrong, and they had to come present to us, to the contractor review board. And it was made up of, again, our collaborative team, facilities, EHS. We also have a fire department on site, emergency services. So some of the leaders there too would be on that team, and some of our union leaders too. But you can imagine, you come into the contractor review board, you got to do a presentation. We hammer on the contractors. You got to do better next time. You did a terrible job. We're going to suspend one of your employees, blah, blah, so forth and so on.
Sounds intimidating.
Yes.
Yeah. I feel intimidated, and I'm not even part of it.
Yes. So, but now what we've done is I started talking to the team about hop, and blame fixes nothing, because that's what, and you see this at many sites, it's always the contractor's fault. The contractor messed up. But when you go and practice hop and you go uncover context, you find out that there's problems in our system on both sides. You find out that, hey, I talked about the pre-work. Oh, we didn't have a very good pre-work. Oh, we didn't do our pre-work. Oh, that's on our side. It's a collaborative piece procedure, but there's always, every time we go, now that my team has understood that, hey, wait a minute, there's always something going on in our system that's making the contractor make some other decisions. So based on that, now we have more dialogue with our contractors every day. When my team's out there looking at jobs or inspecting jobs, it's not an inspection, it's a conversation to talk through things, to help each other out. And where I started with this conversation, we're all being humble and talking to each other and listening. And they might pull somebody aside before they point the finger at them now and have a conversation about, hey, what's going on? Tell me what the issue is. And then they work through it. And then that has trickled down trickled into our contractor review board now, where we have dialogue there too. Better conversations. And then my team is in there too, correcting things now, saying, wait a minute, guys, we're blaming the contractor here. Let's step back a minute. Let's go get some more context. They're using those terms. And then when you start hearing that, that's when you know you're making a difference in your system and your culture.
Good for you and the whole team for putting all of this cultural language and behavioral shift into place. It's really great, Matt. So I'm going to kind of joke with you. So are you going to rename the contractor review board and make it something a little less?
We actually, it's funny you brought that up. We've actually kicked that around. We haven't come up with something yet because it's so ingrained. Everybody knows it. We call it the CRB.
Yep.
We actually had another meeting that I'm going to jump around again.
Sure.
That I did rename. We used to have another meeting that we did where every supervisor that had an employee that was injured on site, first aid and above, would have to do a quick little investigation review in front of union leadership and other leadership for the site. And we called it our incident review meeting. And you could understand how the supervisors would feel on that, because they would get up there, they got to present the incident. People are poking at them like, you don't have a very good corrective action. What were you thinking about? What happened here? It wasn't like that all the time, but it could get there. So what I tried to do is I renamed that meeting to the learning review.
Oh, I love it. Yeah.
Yes. Yes. And that's what you can do with this HOP philosophy. I'm not selling you a program. It's just how you look at things differently to work together.
All right, I've got it for you. The rename Contractor Learning Board, CLB. There you
See,
go.
oh, okay.
Contractor Learning Board.
Contractor Learning Board. I'm going to tell my team tomorrow. I love it.
Okay.
That's
Sounds good.
outstanding.
I'm just piggybacking off what you just explained. So from years
Yes.
ago on. Yeah.
Yeah. I like
Really
it.
great work. Really
Yeah.
great work.
Yeah.
I just wanted to go back to collaboration because when we had spoken in previous conversations, we had talked about cross-functional working across teams, and you're touching on it here, I believe, a bit with HOP. But is there anything to expand on further with that, Matt?
It's really another tool or another book or another philosophy that really has resonated with me since I've been back in his leadership role for WinterLocks is practice extreme ownership. Look at yourself in the mirror. That's another one that we try to talk to each other about inside of our functions in WinterLocks too. Practice extreme ownership. It's again, being back to the HOP stuff. Don't point the finger. Don't blame. Look at yourself too. You're part of the situation. And that helps you be a humble leader because then you're practicing being humble. And then in the end, when you do that, you're being more curious with each other. I don't know if you have any Ted Lasso fans here, but um, it's a great show. That's a great show on Apple TV. And he's got a great quote in there about be curious, not judgmental. If you practice extreme ownership and look at yourself, look at the system, look at the processes, look at your teammates, walk a mile in their shoes, as we say,
Mm-hmm.
that's going to drive that back into it. Just all feeds to that drives collaboration and trust.
And it does. It seems to point right back to the HOP 5 principles, and it's all woven together.
And it is,
Yeah.
and it really, I tell people all the time, you can take the HOP philosophy and those principles and use it across all functions.
Mm-hmm.
And I've had many functions reach out to me. I get operations now that call me, "Hey Matt, I'm having this problem." And my one of our operation leaders, she calls me and says, "Hey Matt, I need you to help me with a learning team." I go in there and help them with a situation they're dealing with in manufacturing, and then they'll do it with me in quality. So you can see where it leads into everything we do, because everything's about context in our systems and our organizations.
You guys are doing great work. Great work. It's this, and this is a topic we hadn't dug deep into on the show, really. So I really appreciate you really diving in here and explaining your own world to the rest of us. So it's really helpful, Matt. We can't end the show without learning more about you. We've learned a ton from you, but I want to flip it and tell us more about you. And say your journey, your backstory.
Yeah, I started in college, and I actually started on the environmental side of the EHS industry and facilities industry. I went to UConn for environmental sciences many years ago, and I came out of school with an environmental sciences degree. Went and worked in a small plating shop that was plating for the engraving industry for wallpaper. They were engravers. They had the big rollers, and they plated on the rollers and engraved. And we did copper plating and chrome plating. And what a experience that was. I did that, got into that, and that led me right into environmental compliance. And I went to work for, back in those days, it was a small shop, and there was a VP of facilities, but he also had EHS at the time. And at the time, we had to implement wastewater. He was just getting into environmental compliance, and they needed a treatment system and many things. So I got the full extent of getting into environmental compliance, working with facilities right off the bat. I went into working with him. He put me working with the maintenance department. I wasn't just pushing papers or doing anything like that. He put me right there and working right side by side with plumbers, installing our wastewater treatment system. I had to oversee it. It was a old batch treatment system, small batch treatment system, but got experience right there working with those closest to the work. I didn't even know it. And here I am today. Yeah. And then from there, I went into consulting, doing environmental compliance work for a company called Fuss and O'Neill out of Manchester, Connecticut.
Oh, yes, I know it.
Did that for several years in environmental compliance world. Touched on some safety stuff, then went to work for a company called Collins Aerospace in Connecticut.
Mhm.
And that's where I really started getting my teeth into the safety side of it. I went in there supervising EHS, doing environmental compliance because I was already consulting for them doing environmental compliance, doing a lot of work with great work in there. And then then I got there and I supervised EHS, so I had to supervise safety. So that's where I started really touching on safety and getting into the safety realm.
Mhm.
And did that for about 3 years, and then my boss left to go work in Collins Locks at the time, Hamilton at the time, and and they promoted me into the facilities and EHS role. So now I'm back into facilities, and I really loved having them both. Right there, I knew the collaboration right there because I was the leader of facilities, EHS, and security.
So you had all the arms. Mhm.
Yeah, I had all the arms together, working together, so I could help them, pointing to them, "Hey guys, do this EHS, go help facilities, you got to help EHS, blah, blah, so
Mhm.
forth and so on." So that was another great experience. Just really understanding that, really understanding how capital works. I really got the full realm of capital and facilities budgets and all those things too that comes along with that, and leading a big team across maintenance people, EHS professionals, landscapers, security guards, all those, the full gamut. So it was a great experience there that set me up to come to Windsor Locks, and I came to Windsor Locks as the health and safety manager first in 2011, and that's where I started understanding safety culture and really seeing an EHS management system for the first time really work at an aerospace company
Hmm.
because Collins has a very advanced, robust EHS management system. So I got to see the EHS management system and a safety culture program coming into the Windsor Locks site. And there I was managing our health and safety programs in Windsor Locks for a couple of years, and then I took a role at our corporate office for United Technologies at the time, running health and safety programs at the corporate office, and that's where I really started learning about HOP from actually one of our sister divisions, Sikorsky at the time, was
Sure.
looking into it. Yeah.
What a
So
journey, Matt. What a journey, and all of this that you bring. I can only imagine how much your team and your teams appreciate what you're doing, and you're doing it with them. I understand, but the philosophies that you're changing and developing. It's great.
yeah, because just having that full, and this is where I always tell people that your career is not a straight line
Mm-hmm.
of promotions or a straight or climbing the ladder. Everybody talks about climbing a ladder and straight climb up the ladder. That is not how it works.
Mm-hmm.
All those roles I just described are zigzags. Not everyone was a promotion into a next role. Sometimes I had to take a lateral move to get more experience. So don't always be afraid to take a lateral move to get more experience for your career and for your growth as a leader, as an EHS or facilities professional.
That's very good advice. That's very good advice right there.
Yep.
Okay, so now I have to ask, with all of this going on with you, any time for any hobbies? Anything
Yeah.
outside of this?
My wife will laugh at me. I actually did snowmobiling for many years. I've since kind of somewhat retired. I've retired from that, but I did that for maybe 20 years of snowmobiling. Really enjoyed snowmobiling in northern Maine
Mm.
with a small group of people I went snowmobiling with, and actually saw my friend of mine, his son, grow up from being a young guy on a snowmobile at like 4 or 5 years old, riding on the snowmobile, till all of a sudden I'm chasing him on the trail at 18, 19 years old. Yes, and that's pretty much the time I decided to retire from snowmobiling. But yeah, was always a big snowmobiler. I really like the outdoors. I like walking, out hiking is always one of my big things. And one of my other hobbies is reading.
Mm.
I'm a big reader. I really got back into reading during COVID, and that's where I started picking up some of the hop stuff. Because started reading some leadership books. Really, my interest is in leadership books, organizational books, military books. All those kind of things are really what I like to do.
Fantastic.
Yeah.
Fantastic.
Yeah.
Thank you for sharing. How can people get in touch with you if they want to learn more about HOP or any of the other topics we've touched on and you've taught us about today?
Yeah, they can find me on LinkedIn is a good spot to find me and reach out to me.
Okay.
And he can also send me an email at Matthew with 2 T's .twerdy, which is TWERD as in David Y, at Collins, which is COLLINS.com.
Excellent. Matt, I cannot thank you enough for investing your time and being on the show with us today. Thank you so much.
I really appreciate you having me. Really enjoyed it. Thank you.
Of course. And for everyone tuning in, listening, hope you enjoyed the show. If you learned something, if you laughed, tell somebody else about it. And as always, we enjoy doing this. Another great episode of Facility Rockstars in the books. We will see everybody next time.
It's a wrap. Another episode of Facility Rockstars is in the books. Facility Rockstars is sponsored by Colludus, operating the way you operate in order to make your life easier. Until next time, facilitate and rock on.